All right, Shalom. Before I get started with this lesson, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahashim, Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace and blessings unto the hopeful elect, pushing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in truth, righteousness, and sincerity. To you I say Shalom. This is your brother Yeshaya coming at you again through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Back with another lesson. This one I'm going to be going into how testings are required in this truth to grow. Being in this thing, you know, testings is the number one thing that you're going to come across, right? Trials, tribulations, temptations. You see, but these are all requirements. This is all part of the fight, part of this walk. You see, um, just like with anything, if you're gonna try to, go improve or come up in some company or, be part of some. Um, I guess you could attribute it to like sports or something. You know what I'm saying? Like one major thing that you can compare it to is boxing. The only way you can come up is if you go through certain challenges, right? But especially in this truth, this truth is something that, as a matter of fact, let me get it because it's better if I just get it. It's in, I believe it's in Sirach. It's in the book of Sirach. But pretty much, temptations is something that you're going to come across. Like the apostles always say, you got to get used to suffering, right? But this is Sirach 2 and verse 1. It says, "My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation." You see, so straight out the gate, you got to put that in your mind, in the back of your mind, that, hey, you know, coming into this thing, it ain't going to be no cakewalk. Coming into this thing, you're going to come across certain adversity, certain challenges, right? But again, this is all uh, uh, to make us stronger, because I was, going through uh, certain quotes and, just looking stuff up. But this stuck out to me and I figured I'd do a video on this. But this is from the AI overview. I screenshotted this. This is just a screenshot. But it says, the saying, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body, suggests that facing and overcoming challenges can build mental resilience and fortitude, similar to how physical labor strengthens muscles. Exactly, man. See, it says difficulty strengthen the mind. So you going through certain challenges builds that fortitude, builds that strength in your mind. But the same thing through this faith and or in your faith and through the spirit. How do you build up, that faith? How do you build up your spirit? Is by you overcoming certain challenges, man. And the Most High throws those challenges at you, man. You will get tested, you will get put through certain challenges to make sure that you're getting built up. Because that's the only way you can get built up. Same thing as when you're working out. When you find yourself plateauing when you're working out, you see no gains, you ain't seeing no muscle. It's because you're not challenging your body enough. You're stuck in the same routine. You're not, increasing in weight. You're not, or in as far as lifting, you're not lifting more heavier weight. You're not adding more resistance to your workouts. So you're gonna see yourself just maintaining yourself at a certain level. You're not gonna grow. Only way to grow is to add more weight to that barbell, or work out for longer periods of time. Change up your workouts, right? But in the same sense, like it says, it's right here. It talks about the mind, but also through the spirit. But how do you do that? You know, you're not gonna go out there and purposely put yourself in 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 some uh, in some rough waters, so to speak. Nah, but whenever challenges do arise, you know, you can't be in this woe is me spirit. You can't just, you know, give in or be in this defeated type of spirit. No, you gotta use what the scriptures tell you. Use that faith that you've been given, man. Because ultimately it was a gift. The most I can take that away, right? But seeing, you know, us brothers that have been given the gift of faith, we gotta exercise it. We gotta use it, apply it in our daily lives, so that way, whenever times do start getting tougher, as we're about to start seeing, as we're seeing it now, right? Things about to start getting harder, man. But our faith is going to be required to be at a certain level to be able to endure all these obstacles, all these challenges, all these, uh, um, as you could say fearful thoughts. You see? But it says, let me finish this out. It says, this idea attributed to the Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca emphasizes the importance of adversity in personal growth and the development of mental toughness. You see? And mental toughness is required, but mainly we understand that this through the spirit we get all that. You know, we get that mental toughness, we get that courage, we get the bravery. You know what I'm saying? The scriptures talk about how it's the spirit. It is the spirit that quickeneth; the flesh profiteth nothing. Right? Ultimately, the Most High is going to give us what we need in the times of adversity. Right? But but we got to do. You know what I'm saying? We got to apply what we're learning, what the scriptures are, what the scriptures is teaching us. We got to be able to apply those things. You know, stories of the prophets of old, right? Our forefathers, how they applied faith, how they, you know, put their trust in the Lord, right? That takes a large amount of faith to be able to go through certain adversities, through facing death and pretty much a lot of these different obstacles that they went through and overcoming it because the Most High delivered them because they had faith on Him. You see? But I have another picture that I want to get as well, or a screenshot. You know, it's from the AI overview as well. But I looked this up because I was thinking in my mind, just like trees, right? Trees, they have to be tested. You know what I'm saying? Because some trees, they'll grow and they'll be very, you know, um, I guess skinny, very weak looking, almost like a stiff breeze can knock them over. And they ultimately grew that big because they were put in an environment where they weren't tested. But you know, and the reason why I'm saying this is because you know, you'll see it sometimes. You'll see some trees that are very spindly looking, very skinny, and you'll be like, "Yo, what the hell? Like that tree look like it can be knocked over so easily, right?" But it's ultimately because it had trees around it that was so called or like in a way protecting it from the wind. But seeing that now the other trees have been cut down or whatever, and now it's left alone, a strong breeze can easily uproot it. And we can't be like that. We gotta be tested. We gotta, you know, go through that adversity. We gotta be hardened, right? That's why you see some of these trees that have that thick roots, thick base, trunk, or whatever they call it, thick trunk. Then they be having some thick branches. Those they can go through a hurricane or a hurricane can hit them, and you know, maybe some leaves, some branches might fall, but the tree itself, you know, is gonna be, you know, grounded. And that's how we gotta be, man. Hurricane can be as similar to all these adversities that's gonna come soon. And as long as we stay, you know, maintain our foundation in Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, which is that rock, hey, we're gonna be good. right? But again, that all comes with being tested, you know. But let me get this. This is from the AI overview again. Again, this is just a screenshot, but it says trees and wind interaction. It says the relationship between trees and wind is complex and dynamic. While strong wind can cause damage to trees, wind exposure is also crucial for their development and resilience. You see? And another thing that made me think about this is that precept where it says, I have seen men like trees, or trees like men, roughly paraphrasing, right? Because trees can be as similar to men, you know. But that pretty much triggered my thought process to come to this. Uh, but anyway, let me continue reading. It says trees that have been tested by the wind, or that haven't been tested by the wind. It says when trees grow in very sheltered environments or are planted in densely populated areas, they might not experience the wind loads necessary to develop strength and resistance. These trees could be considered untested by the wind in the same sense that they haven't been subject to the natural stresses that promote adaptation to wind resistance. You see? So they end up becoming weak. So that whenever a strong wind does come, and they don't have the protection, from the surrounding trees, they're going to be taken. So in that same sense, whenever you come through certain adversities, you can't just choose the easy way out. You got to face it, man. You can't just, you know, um, if you're going through, certain like financial struggles, you can't just resort to stealing. You can't just resort to, what I'm saying, you know, taking the easy way out through sinning. Even though it might seem like that's, you know, a sound idea at the time, which is not. But to some people, they might just give in to, they might their faith won't be as strong as that as is required for them to endure through that process. Because ultimately, that's a humbling process. And ultimately, the Most High is testing you to see if your faith is strong enough to endure through those challenges, right? Ultimately, the Lord is bringing you low, so that way He can build you back. He can build you back up, right? But it says, finishing this out, it says potential consequences of untested trees. This is weakened structure. Trees that haven't been exposed to wind may not develop the adaptations necessary to withstand strong gusts. These adaptations include a widened base, increased root anchorage, and strong branch junctions. Increased susceptibility to damage. It says without these adaptations, untested trees are more vulnerable to breakage. Right? That's why you see people breaking, man, because they're not applying faith. Like I said, this is all just as similar to the spirit, because you know you might see this, on some people. They come into this truth, but they're not applying what the scriptures is saying, so then they end up becoming weak, right? And then you start seeing those breaks, those cracks, and that, especially now they're becoming closer and closer to the end. You know, those cracks can become more and more obvious as you know tribulation starts to hit them. Just as a tree, the wind starts to hit it. The more and more, the stronger the wind, the more visible those cracks are, right? Those cracks can be. But it says, excuse me, it says without these adaptations, untested trees are more vulnerable to breakage, uprooting, or other damage when exposed to strong winds during storms. It says root system impact. Wind causes trees to sway and stretches their roots, promoting stronger root development. Trees in sheltered environments may have less developed root system and consequently reduced stability. Right? They're not as grounded. They're not rooted, man. You see? This is the reason why these Christians that say, that they have faith, all this and that, but they have no works to show their faith. Ultimately, that whenever that time comes, whenever that great testing, the hour of temptation comes, we're gonna see how strong their root system is, and we're gonna find out how shallow their roots go. Right? Because ultimately they haven't been grounded in the truth, the true truth. Right? But let's go ahead and get some precepts. Of course, we already got Sirach. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and. As a matter of fact, Salakia, before we get that, I want to get this. I want to get James 1. James 1, and I'll start at verse 2. It says, My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into diverse temptations. Right? It says, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have a perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So let me read this in the NLT. It says, Dear brothers and sisters, when trouble comes your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. Is exactly what we read. Right? This is exactly what we read in that in this. Difficulty strengthen the mind as labor does the body. You see, you gotta go through them challenges, man. So it says, verse 3, James 1 and 3 in the NLT, for you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. See, and this thing is the thing of endurance. Right? Yahushua said, he that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. Right? So verse 4, so let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. You see? And that's ultimately the goal, to reach perfection. Of course, we're not going to be perfect, but our goal is to be as perfect as we can be, before the return of our Lord. We don't want to be found lacking in the time of judgment, in the time of great tribulation, in the time of great testing. Right? Because best believe you're going to be tested. Let me get this. Salaki, I spelled hour wrong. Revelation 3 and 10, it says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. You see? And the hour of temptation is approaching, man. We see in the signs, we see in Esau developing his beast system, putting it all together, laying the pieces out. The MOTB, everything is being made obvious that we're living in the end times, and that the world will soon be tested into accepting the MOTB. Because it's either that, or like the way Esau is going to push it, you're either going to take the chip, or you're going to die. You're going to be exiled. You're not going to be able to operate within society. You're going to be persecuted or whatever. He's going to come through through many means to pretty much bottleneck you into accepting this MOTB. But we understand that the elect are going to endure through all that. They're not going to bend the knee, right? Now, but that all is leads up to the point that I'm making, that these tests that we're going through is ultimately to build us up for this time that we're coming into. Right? Brothers going through certain tribulations, you might be thinking like, damn man, like why am I going through this shit? Or like again with this, right? But not knowing that ultimately, this is all to build you up, man. Nothing comes for free, or nothing comes with a cost. Even growth. You hear this. You're praying for wisdom. You're praying for growth. You're praying for the Most High to increase you. Well, sometimes them tribulations, come with that, man. The only way you'll be able to grow is to go through some type of adversity and overcome it. And then you'll be able to understand. Your eyes will be open to certain things. You see? Just like, how back in the ancient world, the elders were regarded as, were highly regarded because they had wisdom, because they went through certain things. They had a lot of years on them, and they went through certain challenges, obstacles, or whatever. So they had the wisdom necessary to go through, uh, uh, um, or pretty much they have certain wisdom to be able to give counsel on certain matters. Is my point. You're not gonna ask, uh, someone that hasn't been through anything advice on on whatever financial matters or whatever. I mean, and even then, this is not. It's not about years. It's not about how old you are in this thing, because some people can learn by other people's mistakes and apply it to their life, and they'll be able to, you know, uh, um, pretty much increase in wisdom faster than other people. But I'm just speaking in general, you know, just like when you had Gad with with uh with them feathers on their head. Each feather they earned each feather that they got by doing some um, great feat. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever it was that allowed them to earn that feather. But at the end, they end up, when they get a full bonnet on their head or whatever they call it, they end up becoming a chief. But that takes certain like it says in that quote. You know what I'm saying? It takes certain um, you gotta go through difficulties as well, is what I'm saying, in order to increase, to level up in the same way in this truth. But now let's get a different one. As a matter of fact, let's go back to Sirach. I want to finish that out. So this is Sirach 2 and verse 1. It says, My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. So straight out the gate, like I said, that's what you got to understand. Keep in mind that you're going to go through obstacles. Set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble. Right? Don't give in to these weak thoughts that, oh, I can't go through this, or I can't make it. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Just rely on the Lord, man. Endure, bite down. Right? Scriptures talk about, gird thyself up like a man. You can't be weak in this thing. Verse 3, it says, Cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end. Right? Depart not away. Don't dish the truth because it's getting too hard. Now's the time to cleave, man. Cleave unto him, as it says. You gotta hang on, man. You gotta think of it as like you're a leaf on this tree, and that tree is being shaken. You gotta hang on, man. You let go. That's it. You let go. That's death, in a sense. You gotta cleave, man. Now, of course, the scriptures talk about how a righteous man falls 7 times but gets back up. But that's not an excuse to be weak. But verse 4, it says, Whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a lower state. Right? Everything brought upon you, take cheerfully, because it's a chance for you to grow. right? And it says, and be patient without change to a lower state. You gotta be patient. You go into certain obstacles, the Most High might have you stay in a certain position for a while. You gotta be patient. You gotta be able to accept the will of the Lord. Know that this is the will of the Lord, or it might be something you gotta figure out what it is that you're doing wrong. It's a time for self-examination, right? Verse 5, it says, for gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. That's the only way we're going to be. That's the only way the elect are going to be accepted, man. Is going through that furnace of adversity. Again, the kingdom of heaven. You're going to have to attain the kingdom of heaven. You're going to have to go through that straight gate. Everyone's going to have to go through that straight gate. Well, at least I should say the elect. The elect are going to have to go through that straight gate in order to attain the kingdom of heaven. That's just the way it is. As a matter of fact, let me get that. Let's get that. It's in what is it? Second Ezra chapter 7. Let me see. Bear with me. This is Second Ezra 7 and verse 6. There is also another thing. A city is builded and is set in the broad and set upon a broad field, and is full of all good things. The kingdom of heaven, right? The entrance thereof is narrow, and is set in a dangerous place to fall. So the entrance thereof, the path to it, is set in a dangerous place to fall, like as if there were a fire on the right hand and on the left of deep water. So you gotta picture this in your mind. That's that narrow path, that small passage. That you gonna have to go through that. Verse 8, and only one path between them both, even between the fire and the water, so small that there could but one man go there at once. But verse 9, if the city now were given unto a man for an inheritance, which is given unto us for an inheritance, right? The kingdom of heaven is given unto us. It is being offered unto us, right? It says, if he never shall pass the danger set before, how shall he receive this inheritance? Right, man. So how are you going to attain the kingdom of heaven if you don't go through it, man? If you don't go through these obstacles, if you don't get tried. And like I said, the ultimate testing is coming. So these small tests that we're going through is nothing. It's just a build up, man. Like brothers always say, these are just like pop quizzes, man, leading up to the final exam. Some quizzes might be harder than others. But nevertheless, this is all just small quizzes to build you up to the final end. Right? To see where you're at. And if you know what I'm saying, and there's also a thing, I should say, there's also a way for you to gauge where you are. You might go through something, you'd be like, damn, I should have done this better, I should have done that better. Right? It gives you a chance to reflect, self-analyze, and build better. Right? Because we ain't all perfect, right? We ain't perfect in this thing. It's an ever learning process. But that's the thing, it's ever learning, meaning you got to continue to grow, continue to learn. It ain't one step forward, two steps back. No, it's you might be, you might go 3 steps forward and 1 step back, but you can't be, continually reverting, continual backsliding further and further back. Now you got to continue to go further and further and further forward. Right? Progress. But let's see. Let's get another one. Let's get As a matter of fact, let me finish this. Let me go back actually to Sirach. I still got more I want to read on that. Sirach 2 and verse 6. It says, believe in him and he will help thee. Order thy way aright and trust in him. Ye that fear the Lord, wait for his mercy, and go not aside, lest ye fall. Ye that fear the Lord, believe him, and your reward shall not fail. You see? Your faith, that's your faith being tried. You trust in the Lord through any obstacle, through any type of adversity, you still maintaining strong and true to the Lord. But it says, verse 9, ye that fear the Lord, hope for good and for everlasting joy and mercy. And that's what we hope for. You know, we understand that every single test that we go through is just another test, you know, to overcome. Another test that's going to lead us closer to the kingdom of heaven. Right? Verse 10, look the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded? Or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? Or whom did he ever despise that called upon him? You see, and the answer is no one, man. The Most High always took care of his men. So in that same sense, you gotta, you know, keep that in the back of your mind that, hey, like, we're good. We're taken care of. The elect got the victory. All we gotta do is endure. Keep our faith strong. You see? But it says, verse 11, for the Lord is full of compassion and mercy, long-suffering and very pitiful, and forgiveth sins and saveth in time of affliction. See, that's what we rely on. We rely on the mercy and the salvation of the Lord, man. Now, let's see. I'm gonna close it off with this real quick. Sirach 6. I was gonna get different precept, but I think this one's better. Sirach 6 and verse 7, because you know we're being tested because we're coming into a great position. We're coming up into a position to where we're going to be in charge over the Most High's creation, right? We're going to be stewards. We're going to be, you know, kings, priests. We're going to be in positions of high authority, governance, right? The Most High is about to open his house unto us, right? And this, and you know, brother said this the other week. You know, we had a camp. Pretty much, you're not going to just let no one into your house, or you know, even into your parents' house. You're not going to let just anybody into your parents' house. No, you're going to let somebody that's been tried and tested to be a true friend. In the same sense, Yahweh Shai is letting us into his Father's house, but he's not just going to let anyone in. No, he's going to have to try us, right? Prove us. You see? I'm going to read this. This is Sirach 6 and verse 7. It says, if thou wouldest get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him. You see? So this is how we are being made acceptable, is by us going through that them proving grounds, right? Going through them, you know, them trials, those testings. You see? Because it says in verse 8, for some man is a friend of his own occasion and will not abide in the day of trouble, right? Because some people get weak. And you might have, some brothers might have had a friend like that, or a so-called friend, right? Things start getting tough, you know, or things start getting a little, you know, hard, and then you kind of find out that your friend wasn't really your friend. He was just there, you know, to leech off of you, or, you know, or whatever the case might have been. Kind of find out he wasn't a true friend. And in the same way, Yahweh Shai, you know, that's what the scripture says, many are called, but few are chosen. Because Yahweh Shai is calling up a lot of people, but is weeding out the ones that are found out not to be a true friend. And if we be, you know, those elect, the ones that ended to the end, you know, if we be a part of that number, then ultimately, we're friends of Yahweh Shah, right? And Yahweh Shah is our friend. You see? But anyway, this is all just an exhortation, to brothers to, continue to maintain, what I'm saying, continue to fight that good fight of faith. Because it is, it does get hard sometimes. But we got to understand, we got a Lord Yahweh Shah on our side. He's making intercession for us unto the Father. And ultimately, he sees everything. Nothing happens unless Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah sanctions it. Right? As a matter of fact, I have another precept I wanted to get just before I close out. 1 Corinthians 10. Because it's through every adversity, the Most High always makes a way for us to overcome it. This is 1 Corinthians 10 and verse 13. It says, "There had no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But the Most High is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it." You see? So the Most High is always going to make a narrow path for you to escape, for you to overcome whatever obstacle that you're being tested with or tempted with. You see? But that all comes by you relying on the Lord. Because that opening, that narrow path, is not going to be shown unless you put your trust in the Lord. You lose faith, you start getting weak. That path can be blind to you, even though it might be right in front of you. You see? But anyway, I pray this lesson was edifying. I'm going to go ahead and close it out by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Racha HaKwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace and blessings unto the hopeful elect, pushing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Until the next time, I'm going to say Shalom. Kwam Yasher Allah.